Hi there YouTube, Voan here today again. Gonna bring you another product reviews. So today we're gonna talk about this. This is a RetroGen Adapters. So brought to us by RetroBit, the same company that made the Super Retro Trios and the Game Boy Advance Retro Advance adapters and the RetroPort NES adapters. So with this, you can actually play your favorite Sega Genesis games, but on a Super Nintendo. So with this, you can actually play this in this. So yeah, that's really interesting. It's a nice little adapter here. You can it acted as a Genesis on a chip, just like the same cartridge slot that was on the Super Retro Trio. So it's basically a Genesis on a chip inside an adapter. So you basically use it the same way you use a Super Game Boy, but since RetroBit made it, it uses a different video composite. So inside here, there's actually, like the Retro Advance adapters and NES adapter, it has its own AV cable, so you have to use that to hook it up to a Super Nintendo instead of using the Super Nintendo's own composite. So yeah, let's see how it works, because I grew up with both the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo, so this is a really interesting product for me. So if it does work, it'll be a very great experience for me to try, because I actually love playing this on an actual Super Nintendo. I have been wanting to play Sega Genesis game on Super Nintendo for a long time, but I never thought that a chance like this would happen. Usually Genesis game got released on a whole ton of other platforms, but never on a Super Nintendo, so this will be the first time. I did get a little taste of playing Genesis game on a Super Nintendo, but not really, because the Super Retro Trio does come with controllers that replicate a Super Nintendo controllers. Playing these Genesis games using that controllers, some of them are really interesting and really fun to use, but others just not so. It's usually with fighting games and some of those beat-em up games, you really had to use an actual Genesis to experience those really accurately. But with Rocket Knight Adventure here, I think it won't be that much of a problem playing on a Super Nintendo. So yeah, let's do an unboxing of this and then test some game out, and I'll tell you my final opinions on it. Yeah, so let's get on to it. Okay, so here's the RetroGen adapters from RetroBit. So inside, you'll see the RetroGen adapter there. I don't know if you can see it or read this, but yeah, on plain white text there, it actually says play your Genesis games on your Super NES or SNES, as they say. So let's unbox this and see what the adapter looks like from the outside. So yeah, on the back here, there's multiple language explaining all the same informations about this adapter. So yeah, I will only just check out the English ones, since I'm not from any other of those other countries. But if you do buy this, you can check which regions you are and just read from there. But yeah, this one compatible with most Genesis games and yeah, most Genesis games and SNES or 16-bit consoles. So you can actually play this on a Super Nintendo and on any clone system that also has Super Nintendo compatibility there. Also, second sentence there, play directly on most retro portable devices So by that they mean either the Superboys or maybe the RetroDuo Portables if you have that, and the SC16 Go. So if you have any of those three or any other custom-made ones, you can use those. It would be great if there's one that plays everything, but not all of them do that. But yeah, there's included with 4 region switch, so you can play NTSC, which is Genesis, or play PAL Europe, Japan's, and PAL Asia or Australia in there too. So all the Mega Drive games. And it also comes with its own AV cables. You just plug and play. It's lightweight and travel friendly, and there's a measurement down there if you wanna check that out. But yeah, so here's all the controller mapping for this thing if you use your Super Nintendo controller to play the Genesis game. So yeah, A on the Super Nintendo is C on the Genesis. So, or if you want to say the other side, C on the Genesis is A on Super Nintendo, B on the Genesis is B on Super Nintendo, and Y on the Genesis is X on the Super Nintendo. A on the Genesis is Y on Super Nintendo, and X on the Sega Genesis is L on the Super Nintendo, and Z on the Sega Genesis is R on the Super Nintendo. So if you're playing this on Super Nintendo, then you just look at this controller mapping here. So it's basically all the same information that I talk about on my Super Retro Trio review with Super Nintendo controllers A, B, C, and X, Y, Z. So it's basically the same as this. So yeah, so let's check what's inside the package. So in here, yeah, they don't have an instruction manual. Maybe I dropped it somewhere, but yeah, inside the boxes, here's the actual RetroGen adapter here. So as you can see, it says exactly what it said before. Play your Genesis games on your Super Nintendo there, and RetroGen adapter there. So yeah, on the back here is all the other informations. RetroGen adapters, RetroGen and RetroGen trademarks of RetroGen NES and SNES are trademark Nintendo. Yeah, and Retrobit's logo down there. So yeah, as you can see by the design of this cartridge here or adapter here, yeah, it was designed to work on both regions of the Super Nintendo. So the cartridge itself is shaped like a Super Famicom cartridge, but if you see from the pin connector here, they actually made the pin connector similar to a North American cartridges. So you could basically plug this on either a Super Nintendo or a Super Famicom. So no matter what region you're at, you can actually use this to play on either one. So yeah, so in order to play games on it, just take a game like Rocket Knight Adventure here, and then basically you just plug it on top of there. And then inside the box, you have this AV cables, and if you look at the side here, there's a there's a hole here for AV outs. So you can just use the AV cables, plug it like that. Yeah, so just plug it like that, and then plug these things to your TV. So you don't really actually use the Super Nintendo ones. You basically use the one that are included here, and you gotta use this one because all of the Genesis chips are inside this adapter. So if you use this without the AV, it's not gonna show anything on the other side here, you got your region switch. So these region switch depends on the games that from other regions that you are using. So Rocket Knight Adventure here is an NTSC games for North America, so you have to set this adapters to North America, to NTSC. If you're using a Mega Drive games or any of the games outside NTSC, you might as well have to change it to any of the three below. So PAL Europe and Japan's and PAL Asia or Australia. So yeah, you basically have all the regions you ever want inside this adapter here. So I say it's a good looking adapter. Looks similar to the retro ports that I reviewed earlier, but with Genesis games it's actually much easier to plug and much easier to take out too. So this connector here is really, yeah, it's not that tough like the NES ones, but as far as the compatibility goes, we'll test that out next and see if any of this Genesis game works on it. So yeah, here we go. Okay, so there we have it. We have the RetroGens inside the Super Nintendo now with the Sega Genesis games on top of it. So right now let's test that game out and see if it works flawlessly on a Super Nintendo, or see if it actually shows anything on a Super Nintendo. So let's try that out. Try to zoom my camera a little bit out here so we can see all the actions. I got my Super Nintendo handy here so this will be my first time experiencing an actual Sega Genesis games right there on the Super Nintendo. So let's turn that power on and see how it goes from there. So turn the power on and let's see. There it is, Rocket Knight Adventures on Super Nintendo. Oh, it's actually... There it is, Rocket Knight Adventures. So let's see how it plays out. There he goes. I say the compatibility works really good. Feels like you're playing an actual Genesis, but with your Super Nintendo here. It actually feel much like the Super Retro Trio a little bit, but with the actual Super Nintendo here now, the experience is quite different. I'm actually using the concave Y buttons, and that feels quite different from using the Genesis's own button. There it goes. The color is a little bit more bright here though, and the sound quality sounds really nice, like an actual Genesis. There's no issue with the sound at all. There's also no issues with the video at all either. It's just the color. The colors are a bit too bright and too light. That's pretty much what I would say. Too light and too bright. it doesn't have that much contrast to it, but at least it's working. There's no glitches or any slowdowns or anything that I found with this game. Let's try another game and see if it's as good as this one. So okay. So that was Rocket Knight Adventures. So next, let's try Street Fighter 2 Special Championship Edition. So see if Special Champion Edition will work on it. Because we know Street Fighter 2 Turbo and Special Champion Edition are basically almost the same game. But some people prefer the Genesis version. So there it is, Special Champion Edition. So if you look closer, that's the game right there. Yep, Special Champion Editions. Now, since I'm playing on the Super Nintendo control this time, I'll have to go to the option menus and make a few changes. Because I don't want to pull on the Super Nintendo here, it's basically different. So there it is. I made changes to some of those. Let's see, I'll choose Ken this time. USSR. Ken versus Zangief. Yeah, the graphics are very, very bright with this adapter. The floor on Zangief's stage is really bright. It's almost like they have a whole satellite of lights out there or something. The sound works really good. The graphics look really good, and the Super Nintendo controllers works really good with the adapter too. I don't see any glitches or pop-up or anything other than the brightness. That is, everything else is flawless. The emulations is flawless too. I don't know if the brightness is because of the AV cable that I'm using, or maybe it's the adapter. I'll have to check that out next time, but I'm pretty sure it might be the adapter. So that's Street Fighter 2 Special Champion right there. So, Special Champion Editions. Very good right there. Now, Alter Beast, the very launch game that came with the Sega Genesis, now playing on the Super Nintendo. So now we got the Genesis launch game launching onto the Super Nintendo, and see if that one works. Alter Beast. We know that the Famicom has an Alter Beast, but Super Nintendo never got an Alter Beast because, well, it's made by Sega. So yeah, the audio sounds really good too. Let's look at that. Arcade perfect. Or basically almost arcade perfect. Now, the Genesis adapter there it doesn't really actually take advantage of anything the Super Nintendo has inside its console. All it basically do is just using the Super Nintendo console for powers, so you don't actually get any upgrade with the adapters. All the Genesis stuff are inside the adapter, so basically you're just playing the Genesis chip inside using the Super Nintendo's power and controllers. But that's still great because this controller works really well with all the games that I play so far right now. Yeah, that's a nice quote right there. Welcome to your own. I'm gonna kill you again. I never got tired of killing this guy. This guy is legendary for standing still, shooting heads, while I'm down here punching him, killing him until he's dead. There he goes. Very easy, very fun. Either on Genesis or Super Nintendo. This game is still very enjoyable. Alright. So let's try a 6-pack. Yeah, let's try this 6-pack right here. Now this 6-pack has 6 games on it, and I don't know if some of these games may or may not work on some of the clones, but it has Sonic, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, Revenge of Shinobi, Columns, and Super Hang-On. So let's see if any of them works. So yeah, the Genesis 6-pack. We got 6 games now. Mostly I own like a few of those already, but this 6-pack is really interesting. Alright, so it also works, so no complaint there. And there's Sonic the Hedgehog, Columns, Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, Revenge of Shinobi, and Super Hang-On. Super Hang-On, yeah. So let's try them in order, like Sonic the Hedgehog. See how that goes. Sega. Yeah, the color is kind of bright here. There it is, Sonic the Hedgehog. Wow, works really well. You can tell I'm using my Super Nintendo here to play it. And with Sonic the Hedgehog, basically all of the buttons are jumps. Basically all of the lower buttons. So buttons Y, buttons B, and button A are basically all jumps. I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog only used one button, so basically the game itself only just use a controller that only has one button anyway, so you can basically port this game to any platforms. Yeah, I always wonder, whenever I play this game, I always wonder why you can't spin jump, and I never knew that spin jump actually came at the time of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and not the first one. Must have played a lot of Sonic lately that I forgot the spin dash was not in the first game. Yeah, that spin dash move is a really good move. But there it is, there's Sonic the Hedgehog for the 6-pack. Now, let's see, yep, let's try another game on the 6-pack. Let's try Super Hang-On. Since I don't got that game yet, we'll try that one first. Okay, arcade mode. Outride a Crisis. Oh yeah, just a music. Winning Run. Let's see how that sounds. Yeah, I have never played this game before, so I don't know how it goes, but the music Winning Run is really catchy here. I don't know how to use speed here, but man, it's like I'm not looking like I'm doing any progress here or something. Maybe I'm using the wrong buttons. Oh yeah, I was using the wrong button. I was using the brake. Okay, so now I'm actually accelerating. You also got timer there too. Okay. Anyways, that's Super Hang On right there. Let's try one more on the 6-pack and then we can go to the next game. Let's see, this time, let's try Streets of Rage. Now, Streets of Rage, I also got Streets of Rage as a cartridge too, but we'll try this one and see how good it plays. So that's Streets of Rage right there. Playing on a Super Nintendo. So, Adam, Axel, and Blaze. I choose the girl. So. Oh my god, what is that? Oh, the police. I must have used a special. Oh yeah, I wasted a special right there. Touched the wrong button. Alright, let's beat up some brawlers here. This is the Genesis Double Dragon right here. And this is the Dragon Lady, Blaze. She wears all red outfits. Oh my gosh. You dare punch a woman? I'll kick your ass. So this is also basically the Genesis Final Fight. Considering that Super Nintendo got Final Fight, Genesis doesn't have a big enough game at the time, so Genesis basically made this to go against Super Nintendo's Final Fight. And I have to say, between this and Final Fight, I'd rather choose this, because the gameplay in here are actually very fun to use, very fun to play, and the moves are really great. I actually kicking ass in this one compared to if I play Final Fight. Also, this game has multiplayer where Final Fight doesn't, so the only reason is I don't have somebody to play it with, so come on, don't scare the pipe. I'm just a lady. Punch me. Punch me with the... Okay, come here. Yeah, that's a very deadly pipe right there. Someday I'll try to see if I can get Streets of Rage 2 and 3. I'm not gonna bother with the one on the Ad Game Sega Genesis because to me those ones sounds very terrible, so it's very terrible to actually play through it. Come on. Oh my gosh. Alright, so that's Streets of Rage on the 6-pack. So let's try a new game this time. And by new games, a game that we have never tested before. This game, Alicia Dragoon. Look at that lady with her dragon there. Yeah. So it's basically a female version of Conan the Barbarian or something. It's a very, very interesting game. So let's see if it rocks. And it does. Alicia Dragoon. So if you look at closer, there it is. Game art is the people who made this. And yeah, that's the logo up there. So that's the story sequence right there. Stage 1. So let's see how it goes right here. Yeah, look at her. She and her dragon pets. Oh man, she can shoot lasers. Man, never has Super Nintendo get any awesome games like this, huh? Well, now we can play on Super Nintendo. And like before, I don't see anything hampering the games at all. It works flawlessly, I think. No, not think. It is. It does work flawlessly. It's almost feel like you're playing Metroid, but not wearing a suit. And you got like a baby dragon following you around. Sooner or later I'll be playing this game and see how the ending goes, but right now I'm just testing it. The game over screen there is really interesting too. The way the letter flies back and forth like that. Ah, and that's her right there. That must be Alicia. So, Worm Master. But they gave us a rank there too. So yeah. Okay, so we have tried those. Next, like always. Oh yeah, before we go any further, let's try the other two games that fail on the ACT game system. So this is Animaniacs, and we also got, where is it? Well, yeah, we got Animania, so let's test Animania and see if Animania works. Yeah, I'll see if I can find that greatest heavyweight boxing game that we tried last time. Yep, Animania works. And there it is, there's the start screen. So unlike the ACT game Sega Genesis, which is very, very awfully emulated or very awfully presented. Yeah, Animania actually does load. Found this greatest heavyweight fight game that didn't work last time on the ACT game system. Yeah, there it is. So it's basically a platforming side scroller. Oh yeah, you can change character too. Change the leader, that is. Wow, very, very innovative at the time, that is. There he goes. Now we can leave this place. And they got their own innovative password system. So that's really good. So let's try this one. Greatest heavyweight fight. We never get to see it, so finally right now we will. So alright. Oh my god, it doesn't work. Let's try again. Give it 3 strikes. Alright. There must be something wrong with this game. Let's see, does it work this time? No. Okay, one more try. Oh well, doesn't seem like it's working. Well, the bad news is, yeah, it looks like this game probably is not working. So, I don't know if this game will ever work. So, yeah, let's go to the next one. Okay, so next, we'll try the lock-on. Now, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Last time we tried on the ad-game system, it does not work. So right now, let's try on that adapter there and see if it'll work. Because if it does work, then this will be great. So let's try it right now. Ah, there it is. Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Works perfectly. There it is. Super Sonic flying to Knuckles. Oh yeah, they actually got Knuckles music this time instead of that other one. Alright. So we know that that one worked. So let's try it with Sonic 2 and see if Sonic 2 works, because I heard a lot of people say it might not work too. So hopefully Sonic 2 might work. Okay, so there it is. Knuckles in Sonic 2. See if it works. and it doesn't. So let's reset that. Does it work? Nope. Okay, let's take the cartridge out, give it a little blow, and try it again. One more time. Let's see. Does it work? Does it work? Well, like Greatest Heavyweight, it doesn't seem to want to work. So that's it. So Sonic 2 in Knuckles. So Knuckles in Sonic 2 for the RetroGen adapter there does not work. So I don't know how that is, but it doesn't seem like it wanna work on that adapter. So yeah, for the adapters, we finally found the two games that are not compatible. So these two this time. Now it's kind of interesting too, because this one works on the at-game Sega Genesis and this one does not work at all, but this one works on the Super Retro Trio, and I don't know why it doesn't work on the RetroGen right there. So I had to say, a RetroGen adapter, it's a really good clone adapter there. Works really well on the Super Nintendo. All the games that I have tried right now has been almost flawless, I can say, except that the color is a little bit bright on all of them. So it may come from the AV cable perhaps, but the way I see it, the graphics and everything are a little bit too bright for me. The colors are a little bit too bright. The contrast is a little bit more high. So can't really change anything on that TV right there too. I don't have a remote for that TV, so I can't change anything right there. So, but all the games that I have tested does run really well. There's no slowdown, no glitches, or no freezing. Doesn't have that many problems like the ad game Sega Genesis does. So I have to say, right here, yeah. So RetroGen adapters for Super Nintendo. Yep. So this adapter here gets a thumbs up. Okay, so after a few testing with this RetroGen adapters for Super Nintendos, do I recommend this? I say, if you are a Super Nintendo owners and you have never played Genesis games before and really like to try some to get you started with the Genesis library, then I say go for it. It only costs you up around the $20 range buying online at Amazon, eBay, or Stone Age Gamers or anywhere. But the thing is, it's basically just a Genesis on a chip inside an adapter, so you're not really gonna get the full compatibility with all the games that the Genesis had on the library there. So like we tested, if you can tell, this Greatest Heavyweight game still does not work. So like the ad game Sega Genesis, the way this runs on a clone, there is actually something in here that does not seem to want to function with a clone adapters like this. Still, yeah, Sonic 2 and Knuckles here, the lock-on does not work either. We tested this on the Super Retro Trio and the ad game Sega Genesis, and it works. And I think that's because those system has the proper chips inside that makes it work, but for some reason this adapter must have blocked that from here or something, because Sonic 3 and Knuckles does work when locked on in here, and according to what we remember, Sonic 3 and Knuckles does not work on the ad game Sega Genesis. So that's kind of like a flip-flop between the ad game Sega Genesis and this adapter here, because I'm sure there might be a lot of other games that might not work with this one, but all of the games that we tested, aside from Sonic, Knuckles and Sonic 2 and Greatest Heavyweights, all of them works fine. The graphics might be a little brighter and the contrast might be a little bit brighter. The colors are all shiny and stuff, so you can't really, it must have been like the AV cable doing that, or must have been coming from the adapter. I don't know if it's that too, but all I can say is all the gameplay plays really well. The controllers, the Super Nintendo controllers, works really well with all of the games that I tested. And yeah, if you really want to see or feel how Genesis game plays on a Super Nintendo, then this is adapter, perfect adapter for that. So with this, you can just leave your Genesis on the shelf and just put this on a Super Nintendo and play from there, and see if you can get used to the Super Nintendo controllers, because there are some games in here that are perfect with the Super Nintendo controllers, but some of them like the fighting games really recommend using the Genesis ones. But if you're a Super Nintendo and you want to add the Genesis or some of the Genesis games to your library, then this adapter would do it. Well, allow you to do that. So for me, if I have to give a letter grade for this, I'll pretty much give it a B, considering that the games came out really great. So that's good enough reason for me to get this, just to have it there someday whenever my Genesis stop working, or if I want to preserve my Genesis for longer, I might use the games on this instead of plugging it onto the Genesis. But I have to say, this is a really nice product here, a nice adapter, works really nice, works really well, just like the NES adapter and the Game Boy Advance adapter. The audio for some reason might come out a little bit on the low side, but everything else, aside from the bright graphics, everything else, the gameplay and all of that sounds are really out there, really almost flawless to the original Sega. So yeah, so that's my opinion on the RetroGen Adapter. So hope you enjoyed this video. Hope this helps you a lot on deciding if whether or not you like this or not. So yeah, it's basically a product from Retrobit, so hopefully in the future they might have more adapters like this, so we can enjoy other retro systems either on Super Nintendo or any other system that they have planned for. But RetroGen adapters, if I had to get a grade, it's a B. So a B, maybe that you can say maybe to check it out, and if you like it, buy it. I say if you have Super Nintendo and you want to try Genesis game, go for it. So it's cheap, it has built-in Genesis chip inside, so just use that to play on Super Nintendo. And if you do like it, then you can go out there and buy yourself a Genesis and have a blast with the library that it has. So yeah, I'm Voan, and I gotta go.